The chains were too tight around her wrists, cutting into her skin with every small movement. She had never felt cold like this before, not on her homeworld, not in her father's palace. But now, she sat inside a metal cage, surrounded by strangers who whispered and stared at her like she was a thing, not a person. Her name was Liara, daughter of a noble warrior, or at least she used to be now. She was just another slave at the Outer Rim auction. Hidden under rags, her face half covered. With a veil, the air smelled of sweat, oil, and fear. Rough alien voices shouted prices in different languages. Bidders moved through the rows, pointing at those trapped behind bars. Some cried. Others looked too broken to cry. Liara refused to cry. Her golden eyes burned with anger as she waited for someone to realize this was a mistake. Someone from her family to rescue her. But no one came. It had been 4 nights since she was taken. 4 nights since her stepmother betrayed her. She remembered that moment clearly. Her stepmother had smiled while offering her a warm drink. It was poisoned. Not enough to kill, just enough to make her dizzy and weak. When Liara woke up, she was inside a smuggler's crate, her arms bound, her voice stolen by a shot caller. Why? Why would her stepmother do this? Because Liara was turning 18, the legal heir to her late father's estate. Because she was popular among the people, because she was strong, and her stepmother. She was jealous, cruel, afraid. Now, Liara was far from home. Sold like meat, a tall beast-like merchant opened her cage door, grabbed her by the arm and yanked her forward. Next, he grunted. She stumbled but kept her head high as she was, dragged onto the platform. Rare stock, the merchant shouted to the crowd. Royal blood, untouched, trained in etiquette and languages, perfect for noble houses or personal pleasure. Lyra's face flushed with rage, but she stayed silent. Speaking would only make things worse. The crowd leaned in. As creatures from many species raised their bids. A short man with slimy green skin, a woman with sharp teeth and too many eyes, a trader from the Black Moons, famous for brutal slave pits. Then, a human stepped forward. He was quiet, standing at the edge of the crowd. His face was calm, but hard to read. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black jacket with a faded patch on the arm, some kind of military badge. Nice. His hands were in his pockets. He didn't smile. He didn't shout. He raised one finger. The crowd turned. The merchant narrowed his eyes. A human! "This is not your place, off-worlder," he growled. "Do you even have the credits?" The man didn't answer, pulled out a card and tossed it at the merchant's feet. A scanner beeped. The merchant's eyes widened. The payment cleared. Full price. No negotiation. Liara was shocked. Why would a human pay so much without a word? Others had offered less but demanded more. But this man? He hadn't even looked at her directly. Before she could react. She was pushed into a smaller cage, this one with soft walls and a cushioned seat. The merchant slammed the door shut and walked away, laughing to himself. Her buyer entered the transport and sat across from her. He didn't say anything. Just looked at her wrists, still bleeding from the tight chains. "Don't touch me," she hissed, her voice hoarse from silence. He didn't flinch. After a moment, he pulled out a small tool and reached for the chains. She tried to pull back, but he spoke for the first time. "If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't need permission," he said, calm and low. "I'm removing the cuffs." She froze. He unlocked the shackles gently, one by one. Then he gave her a small water bottle and leaned back in his seat. She didn't drink, just stared at him. "You bought me," she whispered. "I bought your freedom," he replied. "What you do with it is your choice." She blinked. "That didn't make sense?" "No one does that," she said. "No one pays for freedom. I'm not no one." Ship took off, leaving the slave market behind. But the weight in Lyra's heart didn't lift. She was no longer chained by metal, but now she was chained by questions. Who was this man? Why her? Why would a human, a stranger, care? And most of all, what did he really want? The transport ship moved quietly through deep space, away from the dark market. But inside the cabin, tension hung like a heavy cloud. Liara sat on the far side, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes watching every move of the human man who had bought her. Not once did he look at her with hunger or pride. Not once did he treat her like she was his property. He had unlocked her chains, handed her clean water, and said one thing: "You're free now." But Liara didn't believe that. How could she? In her world, no one gave anything without expecting something worse in return. Her stepmother had smiled as she fed her poison. The nobles had praised her beauty, then whispered behind her back. Even the servants who once bowed to her now called her slave girl. But this human, this man, he offered no threats, requests, no smile. He simply stood up, pulled a folded cloth from his bag, and laid it on the seat beside her. Clean. "Clothes," he said. "I'll wait outside." She didn't move. "You're not going to watch?" she asked sharply. His eyes met hers for the first time, steady, calm, unreadable. "No," he said, "because I'm not like them." And then he stepped out of the cabin and sealed the door. Liara sat in silence. Her fingers shook as she touched the fabric. It was soft, simple, and warm. Nothing like the rich silks of her past. But it wasn't meant to impress. It was meant to comfort. That made her chest ache in a way she didn't understand. She changed slowly, half expecting him to break in. But he didn't. When the door opened again, she stood ready, back straight, arms crossed, voice firm. "What do you want from me?" she asked. He stepped in and said nothing. "I'm not stupid," she continued. "On nothing. I know how this works. You want a servant, or worse?" The man walked past her and sat down. He opened a storage locker, pulled out a medical kit, and placed it on the table. "I'm a medic," he said. "You need treatment." "I need answers," she snapped. He sighed quietly. "I was a battlefield doctor," he said. "I've seen slaves used like tools, burned, broken, discarded. I watched a child bleed out because her owner didn't want to lose his investment paying for care. I swore I'd never be part of that." He paused, looking down at his hands. "I came to the dark market for something else. I wasn't supposed to stop. But when I saw you, I saw someone who didn't belong." "There. You don't know me," Liara said, her voice shaking now. "I didn't need to," he replied. "I saw the way you looked at them, not with fear, with rage. Someone who had everything stolen. Someone who had every right to fight back, but stayed silent. That's not weakness. That's control." She lowered her eyes for the first time. His words weren't flattery. They were honest, plain, and spoken without charm. And somehow that made them more dangerous. "What's your name?" she asked softly. "Callan," he said. "And yours?" She hesitated, then answered Liara. He nodded. "All right, Liara," he said. "Your wounds are infected. I'm going to clean them. You can sit or stand, shout or curse, but I'm going to help you." She didn't speak as he gently reached for her arm. His hands were warm, careful. Not once did his touch wander. He wiped the blood, cleaned the cuts, wrapped soft bandages around her wrists. The entire time, she kept watching his face, looking for the trick, the trap, the hunger, but there was none. When he was done, he packed the kit, stood up, and stepped back. "You're not a slave anymore," he said. "This place, this ship, it's not your cage. You can stay or leave. The next port is in 2 days. You'll have your choice." Liara sat still, stunned. In her mind, a war began. One side said, "Run. No man gives this much without wanting something dark." The other side whispered, "What if he means it? What if this is the first real freedom?" She didn't answer him. Not yet. But when he walked away, she whispered something under her breath. Just 3 words: "Thank you, Callan." And for them. First time since her father's death, Liara allowed herself to close her eyes, not in fear, but in peace. But peace, she would soon learn, never lasts long. Liara stood at the edge of the viewport, watching stars stretch across the dark like rivers of light. She had never seen them this way before, not from behind glass without bars, not in silence without orders barking in her ears. She was wearing clean clothes. Her hair had been washed. Her wounds no longer bled. But still, something inside her refused to rest. She didn't trust calm. Calm was the moment before poison. The space between betrayal and chains. Behind her, Callan was working. At the ship's small table, fixing a device she didn't recognize. His hands moved carefully, tools lined up in a neat row. He hadn't spoken much in the last few hours, just focused, silent, steady. "Are you building a weapon?" she asked suddenly, not turning around. "No," he said. "Fixing your translator." She blinked. "My translator works." "It stutters in low frequencies," he said. "You didn't notice, but others did. That's why the bidders laughed at you when you answered questions. Your words sounded broken." Her face turned hot. She remembered the jeers, the cruel grins. She had thought they were mocking her status. But now she realized they had heard her voice like a joke. She looked back at him. "You noticed that?" "I notice a lot of things," he clicked. The final piece into place, then turned and held it out to her. The translator lay in his palm, shining like new. She didn't move. He stood, stepped closer, and offered it again. She slowly reached out, her fingers brushing against his as she took it. "Why?" she asked, eyes narrowed. "Why go through all this?" Callan shrugged. "Because you're not broken? Your gear shouldn't be either." He turned back to the table. She stared at the translator in her hand. It was a small thing, but to her it felt heavier than gold. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly. "You already did." She frowned. "When?" "You smiled yesterday." "Just a little." "When I burned the soup." Lyra's eyes widened. She hadn't realized he saw that. It had been a flicker, a corner of her mouth turning up, just once. He had poured salt into what was clearly a sweet stew and then cursed under his breath when it overflowed. She remembered covering her mouth to hide it. Now he was smiling, not wide. It's just enough to soften his face. "First time I've heard you laugh too," he added. "I didn't laugh, you did?" "A little." She looked away. "I forgot how." There was silence for a moment. Then Callan said something she didn't expect. "My sister used to forget too." That made her turn. "You had a sister?" Hattie said. "She died on a refugee ship. Explosion. I was too far. Couldn't help." The room felt colder. "I'm sorry," Layara said. He nodded once. "That's why I left the Corps. Couldn't keep fixing people just to watch them die for politics." She sat down slowly across from him. "Do you miss it?" she asked. He looked at her. "No," he said, "but I remember her laugh. It was small, like yours." She only smiled when she thought no one saw. "You remind me of her." Layara went quiet. Something twisted in her chest. Not pain, not fear, something gentler. "You're strange, human." Get that a lot. That made her smile again, this time wider. She caught herself and looked down, but it was too late. Callan saw it. "Second smile," said. She shook her head. "Don't get used to it." "I won't. I'll earn the third." "One." Her smile grew without her permission. They sat together for a long while, not speaking. Just two people in the middle of the stars, both carrying old wounds. But something new had started to grow between them, slow, uncertain, but real. Later that night, Liara placed her broken pendant on the table in front of him. "My father gave me this when I was a child," she said. "It was all I kept hidden when they took me. I want you to fix it." Callan looked at the cracked piece of metal, shaped like a crescent moon, with a tiny flame engraved in its center. "I'm not a jeweler," he said. "You're more than that," she replied. He didn't argue, just picked it up with careful hands and said, "Then I'll fix it." And this time, Liara didn't just smile. Rain struck the glass of the spaceport diner like falling pebbles. Outside, neon lights flickered through the fog, red, blue, green, washing across the window in slow pulses. The station was quiet at this hour. Few ships docked, even fewer. Travelers walked alone. Inside, Callan sat across from Layara at a small booth, 2 mugs of sync tea between them. She wrapped her fingers around hers, letting the warmth soak into her skin. She had grown used to warmth lately. Warmth from clothes, from food, from silence that didn't threaten her, but part of her heart still waited for the cold to return. "I've been thinking," she said. "When we reach the next station, maybe I should." She didn't finish. A soft metallic chime rang above them. The door had opened. Callan didn't move, but his hand slid under the table. Two figures stepped in. One was tall, insectoid, wearing layered armor and carrying a scanner on his wrist. The other was a pale-skinned female with sharp eyes and a long cloak. They didn't look around. They walked straight to the counter and flashed a badge. "Station records," the woman said. "We're tracking a runaway. High value." The insect tapped his scanner. Small image projected from it, flickering, slightly distorted, but Liara saw it. It was her face. Her breath stopped. The bounty hunter spoke again. The slave escaped a restricted zone on Zareth Neen, likely traveling with a human male. Quiet, well-trained, dangerous. Orders are clear. Capture alive, kill if resisting. The cafe owner raised an eyebrow. "No trouble here," he said. "Only the two of them in the corner since lunch." Liara didn't know how she moved, but her hand had already reached across the table and grabbed Callan's wrist. His hand was still under the table. He hadn't looked at her. Not once. Then he stood up slowly. "Excuse me," he said to the hunters. His voice was calm. Bored even, they turned toward him. "Problem?" the female asked. "I'm heading out. Ship's waiting. Got cargo to drop in the next sector." "Name Jox Rennick," he said without pause. "Ship's under the Emberlight. Check the registry. You'll find it clean." The woman narrowed her eyes. "You alone?" Callan gave a tired nod. "Always." Liara froze. Her body felt like stone. He lied. Right there. For her, the insect scanned him top to bottom. Die. The device blinked twice, then turned green. No match. It chirped. The woman stared a moment longer. "If you see anything strange," she said, "report it." "I see strange things every day," Callan said, stepping around them. "Good luck out there." The door opened again. He was gone. Liara couldn't breathe. She forced her body to stay still as the hunters looked around one last time, and left. Without another word, when the silence returned, she finally stood and walked outside. Rain touched her skin like a warning. Callan waited under the ship's wing, arms crossed, face unreadable. "You lied," she said. He didn't reply. "They showed them my face. You saw it and you lied." "I did," he said. "Why?" His answer was simple. "Because I said you were free." She shook her head. Her voice cracked. "You could have been arrested, killed, sold alongside me. You risked everything." "I didn't think about that." "That's the problem," she whispered. "Why would you risk your life for someone like me?" Looked at her now. "Because someone like you," he said, "should never have to hide." Her hands were trembling. She stepped forward, chest rising with each breath. Her eyes locked with his. "You don't even know who I really am. Does it matter?" he asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm not just anyone, Callan. I'm the true heir to the throne of Arathis' prime. My stepmother had me marked for death so she could rule alone." He didn't blink. Then she failed. For a second, she couldn't speak. The tears came quietly, not loud, not broken, but steady. She hadn't cried in years. But now, as Callan placed his jacket around her shoulders and guided her back to the ship, she felt something more terrifying than pain. She felt safe, and that more than anything, made her afraid. The storm came without warning. A swirling mass of dark clouds crawled over the trade colony's dome like a living shadow. Lightning flashed across the artificial sky, followed by the low hum of emergency sirens. Most travelers rushed to their shelters. But two people were already locked inside a different kind of danger. Liara stood inside Callan's small outpost cabin, surrounded by the quiet rhythm of machines and tools. She was learning how to seal medical packs, hands clumsy but improving. Callan had taught her how to sterilize equipment, fix minor wounds, even speak local trade words. She was learning how to be more than what she had been forced to become. He was outside, checking the solar panels before the storm hit full force. That's when the knock came, 3 short pounds on the back hatch, not the front door. She froze. Callan had told her no one used the back entrance ever. She stepped back from the table. The door was locked, but a red light blinked above the panel. Someone was overriding it. Liara ran to the "Come, Callan," she whispered. "Someone's trying to get in." His voice came through the speaker, calm but sharp. "Don't open anything. Stay where you are. I'm coming." Doubt. But he was far out past the perimeter fence. The back hatch beeped. The door hissed. 2 figures stepped inside. One wore a hood. The other had a scar across his cheek. The one with the scar grinned. "Well," he said, "the princess lives in a medic's den now." Liara backed away, fists clenched. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Neither should you," he replied. "Your stepmother is very disappointed, but she's offering a reward to anyone who brings you back breathing." He raised a stun rod. She turned to run, but the second figure blocked her path. "We'll make it quick," he said before either of them moved. A flash of light blinded the room. Alarms screamed. Smoke poured through the vents. Someone had triggered the overload. The scarred man looked around in panic. "What is this?" Liara didn't know. Then she remembered Callan had told her the backup generator was unstable. Another flash, then fire exploded near the roof. She ducked. Flames licked across the walls. Heat roared like a beast waking up. The invaders shouted, trying to find the exit, but the smoke grew thick. The lights failed. Liara crawled beneath a table, coughing, eyes burning. "Callan," she whispered. "Please." She heard nothing but fire. Then, a crash. The front door was kicked open, boots slammed into the floor. A voice roared through the smoke. "Liara, answer me." Her heart leapt. "I'm here," she choked. Through the haze, a shadow appeared, strong. Arms grabbed her, lifted her. "I've got you," Callan said. She felt the heat through his jacket. She felt his breath quick and ragged. But his grip didn't shake. He carried her out the same way he came, through flame and smoke. Through a storm that howled as if trying to stop him. Outside, the rain hit like stones. But the fire inside still burned. Callan lowered her onto the grass near the fence. He coughed once and fell to his knees. His right arm was blistered, burned. She reached for him in panic. "You're hurt?" she cried. "Why would you do that?" He didn't answer at first. Then he looked up at her with those tired, steady eyes. "Because I didn't come all this way to lose you now?" Tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. She grabbed his jacket, pulled it tighter around him. "You're the fool," she said, "the one they want, and I'm the one who won't let them take you." She held him close, forehead against his. "You should have left me," she whispered. He smiled through the pain. "I tried, but you smiled, and I was done." That was the moment it changed, not just for her, but for him too, because in that storm, in the fire, in the risk of death, 2 broken people had made a choice. To fight, to protect, to stay together. The cabin was gone. What remained was ash, wet soil, and the twisted skeleton of metal beams. The fire had taken everything, Callan's tools, his notes, his quiet world. But Liara sat beside him. It's unburned, alive, and safe. That was all that mattered to him now. They took shelter in a nearby cargo shed, abandoned long ago by traders who had moved on. The roof leaked. The walls were cold. But there was space enough for 2 people who had nothing except each other. Callan's arm was worse than she'd feared. Blistered, cracked skin ran down from shoulder to elbow. He didn't complain. He never did. But each time he moved, his breath hitched. She couldn't take it anymore. "Lie back," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "I'm going to heal." "You." He shook his head slowly. You don't have medical supplies. She met his gaze without flinching. I don't need them. Her hands trembled as she pulled a small blade from her belt, one of the last things she had kept hidden in her tunic since the market, before he could stop her. She dragged the blade across her palm, blood welled up, a shimmering silver blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. Liara, what are you? She pressed her, bleeding hand to his arm. His body jerked at first, then stilled. The glow spread across her fingers, his skin, the burn marks. Heat rose, but it was not painful. It pulsed, slow and deep, like something old had awakened beneath her skin. Then silence. The burns faded, the skin closed. Pain left his eyes. He looked at his arm in disbelief, then at her. You're not just royal, he said quietly. You're bonded, you're blooded. She nodded once. Only the firstborn of Arathis carry healing power, she said. And it costs us, each time we give it. We lose some of ourselves. Callan stared at her, now understanding the weight behind her silence all these days. Power she had kept hidden, the danger she risked even now. Why? He asked. Because you saved me, she said, not with force. With choice, with silence, with respect. She sat down beside him, weak now, her shoulders shaking. I could have let you suffer. I've seen people ignore pain, pretend it's strength. But you didn't hide it. You lived with it. That's what strength really is. He leaned forward, caught her before she fell. You shouldn't have used it, he said softly. For me? She rested her head against his chest. I did it for me, she whispered. Because I couldn't lose the only person who saw me before he knew who I was. For a while they said nothing. Rain tapped against the roof. Wind howled. Outside. But inside the broken shed, there was warmth. Not from fire, not from blood, but from the truth finally spoken. He looked down at her face. Even exhausted, she looked fierce. Bright. Whole. You risked everything to keep me alive, he said. And you burned for me, she replied. They were even now. Or maybe not. Maybe what stood between them wasn't balance or debt. Maybe it was. Something neither of them had asked for, but both had found. I'll get you to Erathis Prime, he said. You won't make it past the patrol lines, she warned. I don't care, he said. You're going home, and I'm going with you. She looked up. They'll call you a traitor, she said. You're human. I'll never accept you. Then I'll make them. She gave a tired smile. You always have an answer, only when it's about you. She let out a quiet laugh. And in that shed, two lives that had once been torn apart by betrayal, chains, and silence now moved toward a single, dangerous truth. The rightful heir of Erathis had returned, and she would not return alone. The royal gates of Erathis Prime opened at dawn. Golden towers pierced the clouds. Shining above a world rebuilt on rules, rank, and ritual, soldiers in silver armor lined the stone path, weapons gripped tight. Crowds gathered behind shields of energy, whispering, watching, but no one expected what they saw next. She came on foot, no guards, no chariots, no floating carriage, just a young woman in a long cloak, her face uncovered, her walk steady. And beside her a human man, battle-worn, dressed in patched gear, gaze sharp as flame. Some gasped, others bowed, but the elders didn't move. They stood tall at the top of the steps, cold eyes scanning Liara from head to toe. One of them stepped forward. The last we heard. The rightful heir was dead, he said. She lived, Liara replied. Hidden in chains, while this council watched her world rot. Another elder spoke. And the man beside you? Liara didn't hesitate. This is Callan, she said. He freed me. Not just from slavery, from silence. Murmurs rippled. Across the plaza, he is not Arathian, someone said. He cannot stand at your side. He stood when all of you sat, she answered. He burned to protect me. He bled when I could not. When I had nothing, he still gave everything. The elders shifted, unsure. We must discuss, one muttered. Decide what? There is nothing to decide, Liara said. She stepped forward, raised her hand, and unclipped the ancient flame pendant from around her neck. It glowed once, pulsing in the air, and then rose, hovering above her palm. A symbol of the old blood, a key only the air could unlock. The crowd gasped. The pendant floated toward the central spire. It clicked into place. The palace doors opened. The ancient system recognized its queen. Liara turned to Callan. I could walk in alone, she said, but I won't. He didn't move. I don't belong in there, he said. They'll never see me as one of them. She reached for his hand. They don't have to, she said, because I do. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the same girl who once sat bleeding in a cage, fire in her eyes, but now she stood with her head high, crown in reach, her voice finally hers. I name you my equal, she said, loud enough for every corner of the court to hear. My choice, my right. My partner. The elders froze. The people fell to one knee. Even the sky seemed to wait. Then, one by one, the council bowed. Not to her blood, not to her name, but to her choice. Liara stepped forward, holding Callan's hand tightly, and passed through the palace. Gates. Behind them, the banners of Arathis Prime rose high again. Not just in the name of royalty, but in the name of the girl who was betrayed. The man who saved her, and the future they would build together, not through power or fear, but through the quiet, unstoppable force of love that refused to break.